Good afternoon. My name is Steve Hanson. I'm president and CEO of ACME Lithium. I'm also the founder of the company. I founded the company a year and a half ago with the vision of building a domestic supplier of lithium in North America. We've got 2 projects in Nevada and 2 projects in Canada, and we're really excited about what's going to happen in the year ahead.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks for joining us. You're joining us from Mines and Money in London, so there's a bit of background noise, but that's people doing business, folks. So and there, you're there as well. What are you hoping to get out of the show, first of all?
This is my first time here in London at the Mines and Money conference, and the interest in lithium and in battery metals has been phenomenal. As you well know, lithium as a commodity increased over 400% last year. We're really facing a crisis, especially in North America, when it comes to securing supply. In fact, Biden invoked the Defense Production Act to ensure that critical minerals such as lithium are backed by the federal government through funding as well as support in a variety of ways. And then most recently, the Prime Minister of Canada announced a $3 billion investment into critical minerals such as lithium because of the shortage that is being faced. So my vision really here is to advance our projects in Canada, the United States, and over time, hopefully secure a supply domestically. You know, what's interesting for investors that aren't aware, most of the lithium in the world is produced from only a handful of countries, including China, Australia, Chile, and Argentina. And although there are resources of lithium in Canada, the United States, there is very little production. And so, you know, that's why we're seeing investors find companies like ACME Lithium and are attracted to our attributes, and in particular, our track record as a management team.
Right. Well, let's talk about that, because I need to understand the team, then we'll kind of get into the 4 assets in a second. So what's your background relevant to what you're trying to do here today?
So I've spent almost 30 years working on resource projects around the world. I've worked on all 4 continents, from Mongolia to Kenya to southern Argentina to Mexico, and certainly throughout North America. I've worked in alternative energy, in mining, and in oil and gas. I've been CEO of a number of companies. I've been on boards and I've been advisor boards. But really, my heart is as an investor. I've invested in many projects, and so I think like an investor. And what that means is I'm very careful with capital that is being provided to my companies, and I also want to de-risk these projects as fast as possible. I want to meet milestones, if not actually exceed them for our shareholders. So again, I founded this company a year and a half ago with the belief that we're going to be in this massive mega trend for battery minerals, and in particular in lithium. And I've had my running shoes on for the past year. We've been very fortunate to acquire projects that are most important in their addresses. Our 2 projects in Nevada are next to the only lithium production in the United States, in Clayton Valley, Nevada. And our 2 projects in southeast Manitoba and central Canada are next to the Tanko mine, which is a lithium, cesium, and tantalum mine now owned by a Chinese company. And we've got a project to the north and a project to the south. So the address of our projects are very good. They're highly prospective, and we have an active exploration program happening in the US and in Canada in 2022.
Right. Okay. So neurology isn't a strategy in itself. So I need to understand who on the team has got the lithium experience. That would interest me to understand.
Sure. So we have our VP of exploration is from the southwestern United States and has been working on lithium projects for the past decade. He's been critical in analyzing and evaluating projects that we've looked at. We have on our board a gentleman that was with BHP for 19 years. He's done over 300 transactions around the world, assessing them, and so has a significant background in understanding how to develop projects like ours. We have a great team of advisors that have worked in lithium, from a hydrogeologist to geophysicists to experienced drillers that have worked in the lithium sector, certainly in the United States and in Canada, on these types of projects. So although we have a small team, we've assembled an experienced one. And again, that's throughout my 30 years in my career. I have great relationships in Canada, the United States, in advancing projects like ours.
Right. So, and tell me, what sort of company are you? Because I get that you've picked up these assets, and Nevada's particularly interesting. You're sort of near, well, very near Albemarle. Iron Air is a company we know in Lithium Americas, and of course, very close to Tesla. So it all sounds good on paper, but what are you trying to do? You've got some guys who've identified assets which you picked up. You're going to progress them to what point, and then what's your exit? What sort of company am I investing in?
So we're an explorer. We have a project to the northwest of Albemarle's project at Silver Peak. We're contiguous to their project. We're in the same ancient lake bed as they are. We did 2 phases of geophysics this past fall. We've identified multiple targets for lithium brine. We're one of only a handful of lithium brine companies that are active in the United States. And in fact, we have a near-term milestone coming up. I have a construction crew that is constructing drill pads as we speak right now, a small road going in, and we expect to be drilling for the first time on that project in about 3 to 4 weeks. So really important milestone coming up here, and we hope to make a major discovery. So
if we just talk about the project near Albemarle, it's a big land package. You're talking about, drilling, right? So there must be a lot of data that you've bought or inherited when you pick that project up. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then also answer the question, why wouldn't Albemarle have picked this up? Why have you got it?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is much like a lot of commodity projects around the world that are run by majors. In many cases, surrounding land is acquired, decades ago by private landowners or companies. So in our case, our project to the northwest of Albemarle, it was owned by a private owner for many, many, many years, probably when lithium was at a very low price. And, we see companies around the world where they have to pay fees for extra land. They may not want to expand a land package to a massive degree. In the past, that may be a different situation today. But again, much of the land package surrounding Albemarle was picked up many years ago. We were fortunate to talk to this private vendor, and due to our background, our team's background, and our ability to develop project, we were able to option that project for 100% and able to advance and develop that project on their behalf.
Okay, so I understand the sort of prospectivity of the Clayton Valley project, but Albemarle, $25 billion company, you think paying land fees wouldn't really matter to them, in a very meaningful way. So I'm trying to work out your strategy, because if we see companies come on here and they go, we'll wrap up some the land around, right?
I can't state that we're going to have a resource or discovery like Albemarle has. I mean, in fact, I'm not allowed to say that, other than that we have a project next door. Closeology is important in the commodity business. As a wise man said to me once, where's the best place to find a mine? Next to a mine. We're in the same ancient lake bed. We believe that the aquifer, the brine in gravels, this multi-zone potential here, in what we're seeing, it has similarities, obviously, to where Albemarle has been operating for decades. In fact, they've been producing lithium there since 1966. At the end of the day, we can do all the best work that we can do above ground. We can do geophysics. We can analyze historical data. At the end of the day, it's drilling here that's going to prove whether we have, in fact, an economic resource. I believe we'll find brine. I believe we'll find lithium. The question is it going to be economic grade? And that really will be the test for us over the next few months. Again, drilling is the first milestone we're going to achieve here in a few weeks' time. Obviously, that brine will be sent off to the lab for analysis, and then we'll continue working on that project over the remainder of 2022. Right,
Steve. Let me push you a little bit, because I'm trying to get a sense of what you're thinking, the type of business guys that you are, right? Because this property, Clayton Valley, is right next door. Maybe it is the same as Albemarle, but and you know, brine is a lot easier than some of the other types of lithium extraction projects that we've seen. But you're going to have the technical know-how to kind of move that forward, or say, well, we can get this into production, or we're going to set this up to make it attractive to someone. The most likely would be the guy next door, because, you know, unless you can demonstrate a scale where someone else will walk in and say, do you know what, we'll have a piece of that. So if that's what you're working towards, then that's fine. That's a fine business model. But I'm just going to get a sense of how you manage your portfolio of assets.
Well, in my 30 years, I've worked on some early stage projects around the world, and in many cases, handing them off to a larger company has been one of the exit strategies or strategies I've had as a business. And certainly that's the case for our company at ACME Lithium. De-risking it, making discoveries, and then ultimately bringing in strategic partners is really important. Companies that have deep pockets and also, you know, technical know-how. My last copper gold project that I was involved with is now being run by Rio Tinto Kennecott. You know, I've sold companies to larger companies over my career. I'm not saying that's going to happen with ACME, but it certainly is one of the goals and visions that I have in advancing this business. We have a neighbor of ours that now is being run by Schlumberger and Panasonic. They made a discovery near Albemarle in this same Clayton Valley region, and they are in the process of constructing a pilot plant using direct lithium extraction. So, you know, here we see a situation where larger companies, Schlumberger and Panasonic, are massive players in this industry, and they're investing in a small company based on making discoveries. So, you know, we're seeing when we're following that situation very closely and how that pilot plant is going to be processing lithium. You know, that is quite typical in our industry, where risk takers like us, who are in exploration, that are using our investors' capital to hopefully make discoveries, economic discoveries. We hope to, at some point, ultimately hand them off to larger players. That's certainly one of the visions and goals that I have as a company. Okay, well,
let's pop over to Fish Lake Valley, the other project. This is kind of a kind of lithium claystone project. That's a bit tougher technically, isn't it? I think there are big projects in the US, but technically, again, you need to, I don't know, a Ganfeng or someone with relevant experience to make that work further down the line. So again, is this just a case of, as you've just described, find it, set it up for the next guy and hand over that problem to them?
You know, Fish Lake is an interesting project. It's over the foothills from Clayton Valley. There's a fair bit of activity now happening in that valley. It was actually the first project that I acquired. In fact, a colleague of mine was interested in selling it, and I ended up buying it. And it started ACME and got us off the races here. We're taking a little slower road on Fish Lake Valley. We'll be doing some geophysics coming up here shortly. Based on that information and my access to capital, we may end up drilling Fish Lake sometime later in 2022. You know, we have recently announced the financing from a number of funds and some existing investors that we hope to close next week. And again, if we have that capital come in, my guess is we'll make the decision on advancing Fish Lake Valley here fairly quickly. So our core project in Nevada is obviously in Clayton Valley, but Fish Lake is really interesting, but we're going to take a little slower path in developing that over time.
Okay, makes sense. Let's go up to Manitoba in Canada. You've got a couple of projects going on there. What stage are either of those at?
Well, you know, we evaluate a lot of projects in throughout the United States and started looking into Canada. And in particular, I honed in on this southeastern region of Manitoba. I really do think it's going to be a well-publicized and really interesting area to advance lithium in North America. And in particular, there is an existing lithium, cesium, and tantalum mine there called the Tanko mine. It was bought by one of the largest Chinese companies in the world, Sinomine, a number of years ago. And in fact, they started producing again here. They've been shipping ore through rail car across Canada to Vancouver, putting it on a freighter, and then taking that ore to China for processing. So I spent most of last spring in 2021 and early summer, analyzing the entire region with my team. There's massive pegmatite fields throughout this region, hard rock, potential for lithium. And so we were able to go in there and acquire two very large land packages in this region for early exploration. Since we did that, MRL, large Australian lithium producer, has come in and invested in the region. A number of institutions have come in and funded projects in there. And so really my investment thesis of this region is really continuing to have a tailwind here. We're seeing more players invest. There's lots of drilling now taking place in the region. I think we're going to see multiple discoveries take place. Our project to the south called Shotford Lake is a mile south of the Tanko mine. And then our project called Cat-Euclid Lake is about 10 miles to the north. We have a major exploration program starting in the beginning of June, in about a month's time, throughout Cat Lake and then Shotford Lake in soil and till sampling. And then we have a major drill program happening in the fall of 2022. So really excited about what's happening in Manitoba. We're going to deploy a fair bit of capital in the region and hope to make a discovery there as well. Okay,
boy, oh boy. So brine, clays, and hard rock. You're covering the bases there with lithium for sure. Just when you say a large program happening in Manitoba, what's large mean in terms of dollars or meters, however you like to quantify it?
This initial exploration program will do up to probably 700 soil samples and up to 100 till or trench samples here in June and July. That will be certainly in the $500,000 to $600,000 range in cost, based on targets. And we already have targets. There's pegmatite and outcrop. There's areas that we want to drill that we've already honed in on. We know we're going to drill in the fall. This soil sampling and till sampling will allow us to really identify those targets. And really, based on that information and analysis over the summer, we'll spend probably $2 to $3 million in the fall on drilling.
Okay. Let's talk about the. You mentioned some raising of some capital and existing investors following the money. I think Waratah Capital Advisors. I think you mentioned in one of the press releases. He's in this thing because there's a relatively tight share structure, capital structure. It looks like to me in terms of number of shares outstanding, which is good. Can you talk to me about the way that you're raising money? Because it seems to be like small increments here and there, rather than going for larger sums. How do you manage all that?
Well, I mean, we were fortunate in early winter to attract Lithium Royalty Corporation, which is a division of Waratah Capital Advisors, as well as a mining flow-through fund. We were able to raise capital at that time, which allowed us to obviously meet our drilling requirements here in this spring. We had cash at the time. We raised additional capital. They have subsequently shown greater interest in our company, obviously due to us able to meet milestones and what we have ahead in 2022. So I've recently announced another financing here with them coming back in and as a follow-on funding to their initial investment. So again, we like them as investors. They understand our industry. And again, we're pleased for them to come back in here and provide us additional funding. This will be more than enough capital to meet our requirements in 2022 and 2023. What I probably will do is, once we are hopefully going to make a discovery, either in Clayton Valley or in Manitoba or certainly in Fish Lake Valley, I think that will justify us to go to through the investment banking community and institutional community and raise a much larger financing down the road, which may happen, possibly in early 2023. We have enough capital right now to meet our 2022 requirements, and hopefully we can advance the company through milestones and achieve what our vision is here.
How much does management hold?
About fully diluted, about 12%.
12%. Okay. What are you, 60 million-ish? Yeah, okay. And you talk about being tight with the money. So G&A for you guys, excluding drilling and field work?
Yeah, I mean, again, as I mentioned early on, I think like an investor, and I've been involved in too many companies where management teams are in for a job as opposed to actually, creating shareholder value. I work for the shareholders. That's my number one priority, is to create shareholder value. and I think like an investor. So, we have, I would say, lower than industry salaries. We incentivize our employees and our team with stock options and by meeting milestones over time. So, I've got a very small team, but I've got a very competent team. And then I've been able to work with advisors in the US and in Canada and able to hire them on an as needed basis for certain projects or certain individual tasks that are being takes place. So we've been able to do a lot in a very short period of time with having a very, very low G&A.
Right. Okay. I guess people can look that up, make their own mind up. Can you just, you say, right, I work for the shareholders and I think like an investor, right? And I want to create shareholder value, right? So phrases which, we hear a lot, but give me a little insight, given your track record, of what you do with a 4-asset portfolio with, as I say, it's brines, clays, hard rock, different skill sets required. You can't have a big overhead in terms of bringing all those skill sets. Is farming part of a consideration, or do you outsource to relevant consultants and you think you can manage this? Is there a spin out at some point, or what are the kind of moments that you would look for, thinking like an investor in terms of driving that share price and genuinely driving shareholder value?
I think you've asked a good question there, Matthew. Absolutely, we're interested in joint venturing our projects over time. If the right deal terms are placed in front of us, it's something that I'll continue to dialogue with. There is interest from a number of parties on our projects. Our team in Canada and our advisors in Canada and consultants that we work with are different, obviously, than in the US, although there is some overlap. We're dealing with a pegmatite hard rock play in Canada, which is quite different than brine. One of the mistakes that's made certainly in the lithium sector is hard rock geologists are working on brine plays. And not to take anything away, I work with some great hard rock geologists, but we're dealing with a very, very different type of situation. It's in essence more like a geothermal or a water well, or more akin to the oil and gas industry. You need hydrologists, you need to understand chemistry, you need to how to manage water and those kind of things, which is very different than drilling for hard rock. So we've been able to find people that are skilled in those areas. As I mentioned earlier before, seeking partners is something that is part of my history and certainly part of the future of ACME. The Australians are probably the best at hard rock in the world when it comes to pegmatite and spodumene with lithium. I believe that we're going to see more Australians come into Canada due to discoveries being made. And certainly I would seek some of the relationships I have in Australia from a consulting standpoint to understand metallurgy and understand how to process lithium from a hard rock play. So, we'll tap into expertise as we need it. And certainly as we advance these projects, we'll seek partners that ultimately can take over and run these projects as needed.
Okay, so leave me with all the viewers with this one thought, please. Which is, you're right. You said at the beginning, lithium's been on a tear. Whatever form of lithium you look at, up circa 400%. Right, that's fantastic. But it's also doing a lot of heavy lifting for the lithium companies as a result. So, what is it about your project or your team or your strategy which is going to allow you to win? Like, say, if lithium prices come off. I'm not saying they will, but if they did, why is yours not a marginal project? Why is yours, destined for success?
Well, the first step here is we have to make a discovery, and that's the first step in our goal here in 2022. Grade is going to be the factor here. Do we have economic grade? Any kind of modeling or any kind of desire that we have in founding our company, we felt that we could advance these projects at a much lower lithium price than currently. I expected lithium prices to go up last year. That was the basis for founding this company and putting my running shoes on and building this business. But I certainly didn't expect it to go up 400%. So, I think that if the commodity price were to pull back, I think we're still in good shape. We certainly have intent to find and discover projects that have some room from an economic standpoint. If if the project makes sense at current prices and only at current prices, well, in my view, that's going to put the project in question, because I can't guarantee lithium price is going to stay here. So we'll have to understand that. The first step here is to make a discovery, get into a PEA, and obviously use pricing models that are done by independent firms that are out there, who do this as their business, and obviously discount those based on what's going to happen in the future, because we're a long way away from production, and we're going to have to look at all the risks that are involved here. I do think the commodity will continue to be strong. It may pull back here, but I don't see any reason why the pricing is going to go back to where it's been historically.
Right. I said that would be the last question, but I promise this one will be, which is, you've got a portfolio approach. You've got, so in terms of risk disbursement across all 4 projects, and, you know, operating in 2 different jurisdictions, 2 different countries. Mining, I always say to people, mining's tough. There's no guaranteed successes, and there's no guaranteed, discoveries. So if one of these projects, falls over, is that terminal for you, or is that just part of mining exploration?
No, exploration has a high level of risk. And so part of the strategy in putting a portfolio together is to allow investors to, we're not a one-trick pony. And there's a lot of companies that are betting on one project in its future. And we've put a great portfolio together. We think we've got one of the best portfolios in North America for lithium projects for potential. But it doesn't mean that if we don't have success in one, that it's game over. And so we've got our hands full for a small team right now, but actually I continue to evaluate projects and get approached on projects that are interesting, and we'll continue to analyze those. And if it makes sense business-wise, we'll consider investing and dipping our toe in the water on other projects as well. So again, our hands are pretty full right now, but hopefully having multiple projects will allow investors to have more than one shot at this.
Steve, look, I know you're busy. You're at a conference. You're there to do business. So appreciate introducing the story to us. I understand the plan, and I understand the assets and what you hope to do much better now. Look, stay in touch. Hopefully we'll see you perhaps when you're back in Vancouver and I'm back from Africa, and we're going to have another chat.
Great, Matthew. A pleasure to be with you today. Thanks again.